Hi guys, back with another episode of the Shbanging It podcast. I know you're going to see my face a lot now because I plan on doing this quite often. But what I'll try to do for you guys is bring you all interesting perspectives about the marketing world that are not just relevant from a agency perspective or from a agency owner perspective, but from any and every walk of life. With that in mind, I have a very, very interesting guest here sitting with me. So this is Manik, and I want to talk a little bit about Manik and his journey to this point, which is why I think he'll make a really, really interesting sort of guest for this podcast. You know, they say that armies are not really run by the generals; they're run by the soldiers on the ground. And Manik is one such soldier who's been through a lot of the trenches at Schbang. His journey is interesting because I think studying in Malaysia, then decides to come back, wants to really work at Schbang, applies twice, gets rejected. Man, kudos to you. Any company tells me no twice, I'm going to be like, kiss my ass. But anyway, he comes into the system, works in our solutions team, has the regular problems that I think he'll elaborate on that most people face when they join our solutions team, figures that out. My first interaction, I think, with him was great. He was a excellent, refreshing breath of fresh air when he came and he did a pitch for Geo Institute as a solutions person, something that I'm not used to seeing. And then somehow finds his way into our culture team and has been instrumental in a lot of initiatives, one of which being this podcast, and has sort of perfectly aligned his vision, I think, with the Shbang vision and is just helping us grow from strength to strength. So Manik, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad to be wearing this
Shameless
t-shirt.
branding, shameless.
I know I'm
Let's
very.
not talk about my shirt,
I'm
but as in like as the show progresses.
I'm very proud of it. I think this is the vibe that brings a lot of people to Schbang. Now that I have put my LinkedIn tagline as culture and communications at Schbang, every day I'll get a message saying I was trying to research about Schbang and I want to join in. And I usually go straight for the advice. You can apply to so and so email. But I've started asking people, what is it that attracts you to the company? And for a lot of them, of course, it's the co-founders, the vision and everything. But one thing I see consistently is the vibe that comes in.
This is a bastardized word, vibe, you know.
But I think it, for me also, the vibe really made sense because there are a lot of agencies in the country and all of them talk about being the one-stop shop and everything. But I think other than Schwang, nobody really owns it like us. We really go all out with what we do. And ever since I was studying in Malaysia, I worked on the brand side for a year there before COVID hit and came back. Ever since that time, me just looking at from a third perspective at what Schbang does or what Schbang puts out on social media, I could see that these guys, and now I can say us, we really own the concept of going all out for our partners.
What was that one, if I could, sorry, if I could just interrupt you, what was that one moment that stood out for you specifically that made you think that, okay, this is the place I got to be at?
I saw this Life at Schbang video where everybody is just goofing around in the office and what you really get to see, what you really get to do. And the fact that everybody is just open, all ideas are open. There is, of course, a battle for the
But
ideas.
an ad firm made an ad film that tricked you to join them.
Okay,
No, but I mean, glad to hear it.
But yeah, that's the vibe that really catches on, and that's why I tried applying twice. First time I didn't get any response.
Who did you apply to? Let's just shame them in public now.
No, I applied straight to HR, and then second time also I got this very sweet email saying, "Thank you for applying. It's not you, it's us. We have to decide between." It was a very nicely written mail, but a rejection. Nonetheless. So what made me apply the third time again was that I want to belong here. Devarg was one person who was constantly putting out posts on his LinkedIn about the work we do, what insights he gets. And something was calling to me, like, this is the kind of people I want to be with, learn from. I think that would be my advice to a lot of people trying to apply as well. Just because you get rejected one time doesn't mean you stop. You go, you upskill, and then you come back, which is, I think, what worked for me the third time. Because the third time I came back with a very solid strategy in place. This is what I'm gonna do. So, for example, step one, I started like connecting with a few members in Schbang. Don't even remember their names. But I just started asking them genuine questions like, what was the culture over here? How do you guys work? Can you take a look at my portfolio? Tell me what I need to do better to get into Schbang. And I think building that relationship made a lot of difference. In the end, I got in on my own feet. I didn't get in through a referral. But just knowing that is important. That's something I see a lot of youngsters missing out on nowadays, because मुझे ऐसे ही messages आते हैं, can you please hire me?
I
This
agree.
is
I
a CV. I
complain.
think you
I've
also
bitched about this
like, तू
constantly.
कौन है, तू
Exactly.
कॉपीराइटर है, डिजाइनर को बोल रहा है अप्लाई, मुझे हायर करो, मुझे हायर करो. आई हैव नो कॉन्टेक्ट, मैं तुझे जानता नहीं हूँ. I am not even in the HR team, so I have no
I
power
agree. I
over the.
agree.
So I try to guide them, like, why are you interested in Schbang? Can you send me your portfolio and everything? So a lot of freshers, a problem they come up with, and this is what I faced while applying to Schbang. I wasn't from an agency background, so I couldn't like put awards on my CV, like this is what I've done.
Right.
On the brand side as well, I hadn't worked for any Indian brand. Since I was in KL, I'd
Right.
worked for a local brand there. And a lot of youngsters out of college, they face this issue, like what are we supposed to show? And in that case, one smart thing I started doing was I started taking on mock projects. Like I imagined I was the social media admin for, let's say, a big brand like Zomato, Swiggy, any
Right.
big brand of my choice. And I started creating social media posts for them. Like how would I pitch a Diwali moment marketing
तुम
post
कौन हो भाई? There
for
are no people like you. How do we get more like this?
and then that helped me like view a story, like this is what I can do, this is, and we can attach my portfolio in the description as well, people can check it out. And I formed this like story, like I started with a nice introduction. I didn't know graphic design, but I picked it up on Canva, and I made this nice I remember, which caught HR's attention because they specifically called me out. I designed this intro that looks like a Facebook page. And someone's picked it up and literally told me, how did you create this Facebook page? I told them, no, it's photoshopped. So I think putting in all that effort into your portfolio, even when you're young, is a huge lesson that I've learned. And I'd like
That's
freshers
very,
to
very useful, I think, for
take
people to
effort
realize.
on that. Just because you don't have work, don't like get disheartened. Focus more on practice exercises and put them out there. Like, this is the assignment I've done. At a fresher stage, that's the only thing
Let
you
me
can
ask you a
do.
question. So, I mean, firstly, kudos, man. That's amazing. And that's, I think, like you're essentially embodying what we're told, right? Work hard without the goal of like achieving something and like a successful follow. But today, let's assume that someone does not have, let's not talk about intelligence, let's not talk about skill set, let's just talk about the inclination or the knowledge to do this, right? Like you went and you upskilled yourself between rejections or between like every year, as the years passed on, you made sure that you added new skills. For someone who can't maybe do all of that, what are maybe 2 3 like must haves you think that you would give to a potential fresher who's applying in, that he should or she should keep in mind?
I think for freshers who don't like naturally know that I can pick this up, a lot of the things they can do is just start mirroring people. For example, I call his name out a lot because I looked up to him. I used to mirror Deva, like how does he write, how does he do that? And I had this Excel sheet of the top Instagram creators that I look forward on a daily basis. So I had that bookmark page, and it was my newspaper, like how are they doing something.
Very
Early
interesting.
on, when you don't know how to do something, the best way is to just look at how your seniors are doing, and don't be afraid to copy or imitate people at the beginning. Over time, you'll figure out your style. Over time, you'll know
Interesting.
what you're good at. And that originality, it doesn't come just like that out of thin air. Originality, I think, when you do a lot, when you focus on what other people are doing, you eventually find your voice.
Got
So
it.
that would be the first step. Like, don't be afraid to just copy people. Um, and secondly, don't think of getting all of these skills and knowledge as a linear road. What I mean by that is, people, if they're trying to pick up SEO, they'll start watching one YouTube video or they'll buy a random course on Udemy. They'll learn something and then they'll be like, मुझे तो कुछ समझा ही नहीं. Yeah, this is very distorted. Knowledge gaining in any skill, or upskilling for that matter, I've learned it's a very non-linear. You watch one YouTube video, you read one blog, then you again watch a video, and over time you have to take your notes, put those pieces together. So don't have patience would be my second practice, like second advice for people. Focus on, go slow, go one at a time,
Build to
and
last.
build to last. And
Got
yeah.
it. So, I mean, okay, now you've talked a little bit about the portfolio and what gets you in the room, right? Being in the culture side of things, I'm guessing you also get access to interviewing or to talking to maybe applicants on a like a broader level. What do you think are some mistakes or some things that people should keep in mind when it comes to an interview? Because I mean, that's the most important stage, right? Portfolio gets you in the door, potentially sets up your interview with your team, and then that interview. I've always felt that an interview is a very inaccurate depiction because I have 1 hour or I have 45 minutes, and if you're not an extrovert, you're not super comfortable talking the first time, you might like make a bad impression, even though you might be great for the job. So, what do you think would be like, again, something you think that someone new, someone who's finds this world a little daunting, because it is daunting for a
It
young
is
kid coming in, like
I
you
can
assume.
remember my
So, exactly, right? So, I mean, what would you say is something that you should just keep in mind when you're coming into an interview that'll help you out?
approach it as a conversation, just as the company is getting to know you. When you don't have anything to say, just ask questions. That is a lot of what I did in my interview as well. When I was
Who did
interviewing
you
for,
interview with? Sorry.
I was interviewing with Johan,
Okay.
who's great, who's been one of
Now you have to
the
say that he
best.
still works at Schbang.
No, I genuinely like the way he like takes things on, and I had Nazish as well, who eventually like I worked with on the pitch in
Right.
Geo Institute. And I approached that interview more as a brainstorming session, because if you treat it like an interrogation, you are gonna feel like intimidated. I went in with a lot of curiosity. Like they asked me questions. How would you tackle a client rejection? How would you tackle a client who says 3 days में मुझे ये brief complete करके चाहिए? So I used to give my opinions. I treated them as my opinions, and I didn't think would they like my answer. I told them this is how I've dealt with situations in the past. Although I've been on the brand side, I still had to talk to my boss, get their approval. This is how I've done. How do you guys do it? And can I propose a way to do this? And I remember one of these questions they asked, like, how would you deal with client rejection? I told them client rejection for me comes in when you have not like taken them through the journey of the idea. So one thing I would change was, rather than giving them the final design, I would show them mock-ups on Canva. I would take them through the skeleton and then present the idea
Final
and the film.
output.
So they liked that, I remember, because I was suggesting fresh approaches.
Got it.
So I think that would be my answer. Don't feel intimidated about it being an
And
interrogation.
approach it like a
Go with
conversation.
curiosity. Yeah.
Got
Ask
it.
questions about the company.
Got it. So I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about the switching of departments, but I'm guessing because you switched departments, and there's nothing wrong in that, the first department that you were in probably didn't work for you. So, are there any experiences that stand out for you, that like problems you faced when you were joining in as a executive level individual, and how do you tackle those? Like today, and I know because I've also been there, right? There is a
True.
time when you're at a junior level where it can't be done is not an option. That's not an answer that you can give, and it's not acceptable. Even if it's physically impossible, maybe after 2 days of watching a junior executive bang their heads against the wall, you'll be like, okay, chal, you've really tried everything. Maybe it's not possible. So, how did you like? What are some of the problems you faced maybe early on? How do you tackle them? How do you approach it?
That's a nice question because it brings back a lot of memories.
It seems like you went through war trauma right now. Like, oh my god.
It's all flashing through my eyes. I think one piece of wisdom I would say I would give to like youngsters: when you join your dream companies, like Schbang is for many, Google, Microsoft, any dream company, you're gonna get hit with the reality that it's like any other company inside. Everybody has their systems come with opportunities, problems, gaps, and everything. So don't expect going everything's going to be a rosy picture. You are going to face challenges. Doesn't mean you took the wrong decision. You gotta have that call of sticking it out, finding a solution, which is what I'll come to. So I remember like when I first started at Schwang, I had this picture, everything's going to be set and everything. And I understand that like I found out that like any other agency, we work a lot on ad hoc stuff. That is part of the game, because the industry we are in is ad hoc. There is a moment that happens, you react to it. So I was not prepared for that kind of speed. Now I know that this is how the agency life is, and now I can tell anyone that's nothing negative in that. You just got to be prepared for the speed. And of course, the problems I faced were a lot in like the knowledge transfer. Do you know anything about this brand? Is there a brand book and everything? And at that time, I had a conversation with my parents like, is this gonna work out? I put 2 years into this. I announced it on LinkedIn. I don't want to back out. I did come to this point where maybe this is not for me and everything.
So to the
But
edge, you were about to jump, you looked
jump.
and you're like, chal, rehne de.
But then I just, nobody told me this, but I had this just mindset shift that if there is a problem, try to be part of the solution as well. So I started building tools for myself. One thing I did to make my job easier was whenever I got assigned a new brand or a new pitch, I created this brand Bible, and this is a practice that we now do at Schbang. We have been doing at Schbang. Maybe it wasn't done for my team since the brands were new, but I started doing that for myself. That before I jump into any pitch or any project, let me take a step back, understand the brand better, started discovering new tools. One thing I push everybody in my team to use is we use this thing called Airtable instead of Google Sheets. Free promotion for them, but that's much
Link in the
faster.
description.
Yeah, link in the. We'll put a affiliate link
Yeah,
in the
come on, we'll
description.
track
Make
it and all
some,
also and
yeah.
see.
So I started actively seeking out new tools to make my job faster, and I think that comes with passion. Like, you have to be passionate about solving the problems. You can either say, it's not working out, I quit, or you can go in search of, okay, if this is the problem with the system, what can I do, what can I suggest to make it better? And that's not a rosy idealist picture as well, because yes, just because you suggest doesn't mean your ideas are gonna get like accepted. So I faced that resistance early on. You must have faced that resistance in your time as well, you coming up with new ideas.
I feel like I like to believe that I grew up in a different time of like social, where at least when I started out, the path from junior executive to say VP was a lot shorter than it is now. So I mean, I started work maybe 10 years ago, so it was a little bit different. Yeah, I definitely had my own challenges, which were after you grow to a particular role, sometimes these roles, no one really knew what the actual job description was, and you were just figuring it out as you went. But I mean, yeah, there were tough times for sure in the starting where you were really, really struggling. But I didn't approach it this way, right? Maybe because I'm a lazy person, I want to find the smartest way rather than the hardest way to do it. But for those people who can't do this, right? Like you said, you make it a point to learn. You're making it a point to build tools for yourself. You're making processes, systems, SOPs, and like process to make your life easier. Uh, one part of it is actually putting in that effort and thinking it through. Yeah, that's amazing, which you do, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are willing to do. But what do you think made it different for you? Because again, talking about something when I started out, and if I had a suggestion that might have necessarily been better than the manager that I was working under, it was met with a lot of negativity. Like, no, I don't want you to show me up. I don't want you to talk. So how did you, like, did you have to face that? And if you did you combat that? How? What should people do if they're getting a solution where they're met with resistance?
I did face that early on as well. In solutions, like a lot of the times when I said this is how.
Johan.
No, that
No,
was
it's a
not
joke, Sim.
Johan. It was more of, because when you're working with such a large group of people selling a different change in plans or perspective, it's often like faced with resistance. In that case, I started like just building a case for myself. Like, this is how I've done it. I've already done this. You can see the result. Maybe you're open to that. And a big part of that experience, I think, helped me like look for a team where I can like suggest such ideas and can be implemented. If of course it has merit, the idea has merit, it can be like implemented throughout Schbang, which is what people like told me. There is a team that does
Got
what
it.
you really like, and
Got
that's
it.
how like I was
Reaching this.
introduced to culture. But that was also tough because I didn't know anybody in culture. So I decided to take a leap, message Anshul, who leads the team. I had a conversation with him as
Your
well.
new boss, basically.
Yeah, my new boss, Anshul. Yes, Anshul Sharma. And at the same time, I remember I
Horrible
put.
guy, now I've heard tyrant to work with.
No, not at all.
No,
He's
no, just
the best.
we
The
love you,
one who
Anshul.
will.
Sitting behind the camera laughing at us. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but I didn't approach him to join the team. People had told me like, first befriend the guy, see if he matches the vibe and everything. But I remember in the first 15 minutes of the conversation, he asked me like if you're eager to join the team, because I had built tools and everything. We were working on an early version of, I was working on an early version of our new wiki. Wiki is basically our intranet.
Yeah, you want to tell everybody what the wiki is simply?
Yeah, that's a love of, like, we've worked very hard, the entire team
Labor
has
of
worked.
love, this
Yeah,
is.
labor of love. Wiki is basically where you can see Schbang's entire brain come together. We have all our resources, templates, SOPs, and everything. So basically, like an intranet, we call it the base camp now.
Correct.
Only Schbang employees can access it.
So if you want it, you got to join Schbang.
Yes, yeah.
Nice.
But so I showed him the early prototype on that, and I think that's what made it click. Like, this guy is actually trying to show me examples of it.
So you went with, so saying instead of talking the talk, walk the walk first, and then people will listen.
I think this is what HK had spoken in a previous episode as well. Like, it's the work, the work, the work. I resonate with that a lot. Because a lot of the time, sitting here and just pitching your ideas, it's not gonna work. I think
Ironic, you're saying this to a person who sits and pitches ideas all day.
But I think one of the things I've learned from, like, talking to people who are being in pitches and being in that pitch where you were a part of, what we had done was, we, instead of just pitching strategies, we had actually created social media posts for the
I was saying
client.
before the camera started rolling, that was a pitch which had been set up for 8 slides, 10 at max, and sir, you had come back with about 100.
But it's about showing people, like, examples, because people believe that more. So we had pitched the client, like, this is how your post can actually look like. Of course, there was feedback from that, but it was better than telling them, this is what we can do for you. So when you actually go and I've seen in a lot of pitches the approach we take, and I think that's the reason why we get so many people wanting to work with us. We go all in with our mock-ups, prototypes. This is how our social media strategy can actually play out once. I remember for one of our clients who done an entire Instagram feed to show them how we can revamp it. So that approach really, that brass tacks approach really helps, and that's what I pitch to.
But let me ask it
HQ.
to you this way, right? Like today in the department that you're in, or for that matter, the department that I'm in, doing it one time gets the job done. But today for someone in execution, you think it's still as practical? Like today, someone who's working with a client day in and day out can't every time have the time to do the mock-up, show it to him, do it like that. They'll argue that, this is the time that a BD team or a culture team has access to because they don't have daily client calls. How do you think that that doesn't hold true and you can do it anywhere?
I'm not saying you should do every social media. You should create every social media post before showing it to the client. I think it's a matter of playing smart and building that trust. Once you show them, like, this can be executed, we have already done this. Then they eventually, like, give you the free hand, your managers or your clients, whoever you're dealing with.
Trust gets built, you're saying.
Trust gets built because they've seen it. And I think the next best thing to do is, if you can't create it, build a lot of references. So in one of the pages of our wiki, we have this hub of inspiration where we have all the sites like Pinterest and all the famous blogs, award sites. We can get access to the best work. So referencing is a skill I would definitely, like, recommend for youngsters to pick up, because nobody needs to teach you references. You just need to bookmark it. I have this own newspaper that I pick up every day. It's an RSS feed where I've combined, and you can figure this out on Google. I don't need to go into the details, but I've basically combined a page where I've collated all the marketing blogs overall industry. So whenever someone publishes a new article, it shows up. So that's like my daily newspaper.
Got
where
it.
I
So like
get
specialized feed, you find your interest and you just make sure you hone them and you grow. Got
so
it.
referencing and being actively on the knowledge, you can do it in your commute. You don't have to spend your office hours in it. As you said, solutions is pretty hectic. Since I have been through it, I can say that it is possible to
be done.
But if you still disagree, of course you can do it during your commute time and everything, and store those references. Again, I have this thing where I put the link in, let's say, my WhatsApp chat and everything, and at the end of every week I collate them into a database where every idea is, like, sorted, tagged according to
so that you can have it at your fingertips whenever
so all
you need
of this sounds like,
a
he's
lot of
trying to
work.
be over smart, but that's what helps you in the long run. So a bit of effort in the beginning, I feel, and a lot of people have told me this, इतना सारा इससे कुछ होता नहीं है, तो पहले काम तो कर daily. But this helps me do my daily work
No, for
faster.
sure. I mean, someone, I don't remember who, but someone dropped a very interesting quote that you don't need to build people, you build systems, and systems build people. So, I mean, I think, yeah, you're already
You
on that
focus
track.
on the systems,
So you
definitely.
moved departments, right? Like you went from one to the other. Not going to talk about good, bad, or ugly, but for you personally, you felt that was obviously that was a good move because you're doing something that you like now. Do you think that that's something that a lot of people don't know at maybe at an entry level, that that's a possibility, that they think that when they come into one field or they come into one industry, whether it's creative, whether it's design, whether it's servicing, let's just say the three broad headings of our industry, that they get stuck in it and that they can't move?
I felt like that, so I can say that's I'm sure that's the reality for a lot of like people joining us, that even though they know they have one hand ka access to other fields, they have this fear that let's say if I have been in SEO all my life, how can I possibly pick up graphic design, which is like nowhere near even SEO. If you're thinking of UI UX, maybe there's a correlation. There's no opportunity for you to jump, is the mindset that's created. But one thing I'll say is some of the best seniors I worked with outside Schbang as well, some of the best people I know, they have skipped and hopped, not every 6 months, but they have been open to that exploration. So a lot of people ask me, there are so many open roles in Schbang, I want to join, where do I apply? Is it a creative strat or a solution strat? Of course, there is a distinction. We've talked about it in our previous induction podcasts and everything. Of course, there's a distinction, but don't be so focused on joining the right role that you never make that leap.
Got it.
Join any role, explore if copywriting is for you, learn something out of it. I promise you that will help you in graphic design.
I agree.
One of the earliest work experiences I remember is, this is my first internship. I've joined as a copywriter, and my manager told me, we don't have a graphic designer, so you pick up Adobe, here's a laptop loaded with Illustrator and Photoshop. I have never even worked in Canva. This was back in 2016, 2017. I just watched a few YouTube tutorials. I started picking up graphic design. So I don't call myself a graphic designer,
But you
because
know how to
I'm
do it.
nowhere. And that has, knowing that the basics has helped me talk with graphic designers very quickly when I was in solutions as well. Now also, when we build our internal stuff, I can actually give an artboard to my graphic designer saying, your 30% job is done, the copy is set over there, you do your thing. I'm giving you this to speed up both our work. So I can promise this to anyone, any field you join, your knowledge is not going to be wasted. It'll always accumulate, and it'll always accumulate on top of each other. So don't be afraid to like switch. There is opportunity. You just have to prove your passion and worth, and you have to also prove that you can stick through the hard times. A lot of the people, they'll join after 2 months, they're like, this is not for me, they'll skip, they'll skip, they'll skip. But I went through that 6 months journey, because when I was making my pitch to Anshul or HK, I wanted to be certain that I've spent 6 months here. I am coming with the intention of making things better. And this is the realities I've seen. This is where I feel we're doing great. We can do even better. And that is why I wanted to join. If I had made the same pitch in, let's say, 2 months of joining, I don't think my ideas or my pitch would have held water a lot. So after a time, be open is what I say. There's always opportunities if you ask.
Got it. So just should not be scared to ask, is your one takeaway.
Definitely.
Okay. I've covered a lot of stuff. Last couple questions I have for you. One is, you seem to be a very level-headed, thought-through person who has their idea of what they want, at least in their life. So what is, in a company like Schbang, talking to potential employees, what is according to you the future for you? What do you see as your future here at Schbang, and what do you see Schbang moving towards? I mean, you're obviously in a very critical team that's sort of influencing how Schbang is perceived and how Schbang is viewed by the outside world. So for you, what are the future plans, and what do you think are the ambitions as Schbang?
As a company, I feel we are more and more exploring new avenues like technology is something we are moving towards. I think that will always be the direction we move in. We as a company, again, the vibe I get over here is, I think that's the name of this
The
podcast
vibe.
episode, the vibe at Schbang. That we don't chase trends, we try to like come up, try to pioneer new trends. So I think that is the direction we keep moving in, is that if we know that AI or AR VR is the future, we have already started latching onto it. We created our own AI bots which we promoted. We are trying to experiment with brand activations. We are moving globally and everything. So as a company, that's what excites me as well as an employee, that I don't have to wait for the world to move. I can
Move towards.
move
Fair.
towards it, and the world can follow us.
And what about you
Um,
personally? Where do you see yourself? You want Anshul's job now eventually?
I think I want to keep like exploring. This is why like I've joined the culture and communications team. I want to get a broad perspective. One thing I know Schbang encourages and our co-founders also support is like entrepreneurship. We have our partner companies as well. We have our partner network. So I would like to do something after like gaining like 4-5 years experience. That is something I would want to do. That is also something that I feel forms a good culture in a company, when you're not afraid of your own people growing. That's what I like about our team as well, about Anshul as well. Not saying because he's here. Our discussions, performance discussions are already done. So, but promoting that culture that you can grow with us, we won't keep you down or we won't let you like settle. In fact, we'll push you to keep being more ambitious, take on a different role, take on a bigger role. That makes a lot of difference. So that's what my answer would be. I would want to like also have a partner company, also branch out a new complete business avenue for Schwang maybe. Because that's the culture I'm growing up in, and I want to like take that forward,
Very
build more
interesting.
entrepreneurs, be an entrepreneur myself maybe.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to shift gears and make it a little bit more fun.
Okay, ready for
Uh,
this.
I'm just going to ask you some random questions. Tell me what do you think. What is the biggest fuck up you've done in your career at Shebang so far?
Biggest fuck up my career. I stepped in on a client call where I shouldn't have been. It wasn't my cup of tea to handle it, but I went in anyway. And one of the lesson I learned from that is that you have to also know the person you are speaking to, because that blew up on my face. I tried to rectify the problem,
But you made it
but
worse.
made it worse.
Did the client stay with us or the client
Yeah,
left?
yeah,
Okay, so
it's all good.
it wasn't irreparable
It's
damage.
all good. Yeah.
What is your best achievement in the solutions team and your best achievement in the culture team?
My best achievement in the solutions team would obviously be like the pitch, because it was my first. I knew nothing about pitching, but I knew what a client would want to see because I've been on that brand side. So doing that pitch all on my own. Of course, we had interns, we had juniors. They were
Yeah,
the
but you were
backbone
leading it.
of
You
it.
were leading
Yeah,
it.
I'm not gonna
You
take
don't be
the
so
credit.
modest also.
Yeah,
Now, come on,
exactly.
it's
I did
okay.
lead that pitch, and
It's
I did
okay.
put my heart into it.
Good.
So
It
that was
showed.
my biggest achievement at solutions. I think my biggest achievement at culture would be just finding such a good team. I know that sounds like a vague answer, but I believe, and I'm going into slightly philosophical notes over here. It's a good way to end podcast. But you also have to be open to find the right people. If you're always gonna say, "मुझे ऐसे ही managers मिलेंगे, मुझे ऐसे ही लोग मिलेंगे जो हेल्प ही नहीं करते," you're always gonna end up finding those kind of people. But even finding the team I'm in, the team that I'm thriving in, I'm enjoying. There's of course so many challenges ahead. That was my biggest achievement. Like nobody told me, I had to find my way in, meander my way in,
So to quote
finding
you
the
only,
best
your
people.
vibe attracts your tribe.
Tribe. Yep.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting. What is your favorite spot in the office?
Favorite spot in the office. Favorite spot in the office, wherever, like maybe Harshal's den would be the favorite spot in the
Interesting.
office. Yeah,
I'm glad you didn't say this
uh,
because I mean I'm sure y'all are all wondering. He is not stressed out. He is sweating so much because
oh
we are
my
sitting
god,
in our
it's
new
showing.
podcast studio
Okay.
and it is The AC is not
It's
working yet.
sultry.
Don't worry about it. But look at the laugh and laughter on his face, even though he's
It's like
probably
I've
dying.
eaten like a North Indian
I'm gonna finish
meal,
one
and
last question. I'm gonna let you go because I want you to go and chill, my friend. I feel like I'm the only one who's not sweating here, and you're dropping bullets.
Okay.
If there was one sentence that you can say that describes your mindset and your personality and how you got here, one way to like describe yourself, what would it be?
Don't complain, just find a way out.
That's a nice way to end it. I'm not gonna like push beyond that because if anyone wants to work at Shebang, I think that's just the answer. Don't complain, find a way out. Thank you so much, Manik, for taking the time and sitting down and sweating with me here.
I love this.
Hopefully, this is the first of many conversations.
Hope
And
to come back. Thank you so much.
thank you.